Welcome to Real Estate Hacking Live. How y'all doing tonight? All right. My name is Chris Bounds, your host and co-founder of Invested Agents. Let me introduce tonight's special guest, Mr. Jaime Lazcano.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming out. So Jaime, he's an entrepreneur, real estate investor, agent, and he's got extensive experience flipping houses. He's a family man. Got his family out here. Front row seat. He's a family man, loves working towards perfection, and he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And judo.
Didn't know that. Man,
that's
my
guy's main bread and butter.
How you doing, Jaime?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me over. Let me start with telling you that actually that event they used to have back in Rudy's. That was one of the first ones that I went out and I still didn't know anything about anything. And I actually did a deal with Jet Lending on one of those. So yeah, it was great for me to learn the ropes and start talking to people, like the people you brought here, very experienced. So yeah, I'm glad to be here, and it's kind of awesome to come back a full turn circle now talking about some of the deals that I'm doing. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I definitely wanted you coming out because I know you've got a lot of experience talking about the subject of the hour. That's flipping houses. We're going to be talking about a case study of a house that you flipped recently, like in this market. Like, believe it or not, people are actually still doing deals in this market. So that's why I wanted to have you out, talk about this case study. And we could have talked about a case study that everything went very well, seemingly, no issues, got a big payday at the end. That'd be boring, though, wouldn't it? Maybe not for you.
That would be boring for me. But it's not always like that, you know?
No.
It's not.
No. We're going to talk about one that had a little hair on it. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Well,
let's take a look at this deal. All right. This is the deal. Where was this deal? Where was it, and how'd you find it?
So that's where it starts going downhill real quick. Because mind you, when I got this deal, I already had a lot of experience. I've already done a bunch of flips, and then, you get on the comfort zone. And by that, I mean, this particular deal, we were doing virtual. And since I'm a flipper, that's not really my go-to thing to do. We looked at the numbers. Numbers looked all right. This is out in the middle of between Brenham, Texas, and College Station, Texas. Now, Brenham is an area that I'm personally fond of, and I hold properties out there now and all that. But it's a risky market. I wouldn't say it's a beginner market, especially right now, because if things are slow here, they're twice as slower on smaller cities and 3 times as slower where I particularly picked up this house. So, yeah. I bought it without really looking at it, and I rarely do that. Not only that, there was no comps at all, so I broke another rule. I can explain it because it's like buyer's remorse, like when you're trying to buy something, you shouldn't buy it, so you justify it with fake numbers. So not only that, there was no comps to prove this, and we decided to move ahead with it. And that's how that got started.
How did this deal even come across your desk?
So we got it from our SEO efforts. So we have a website now, and people find us online. And, and somebody randomly was looking at our website from that area, and we got after that.
All right, so SEO, search engine optimization. Someone went on your website and said, hey, seems like a legit company. Let's have them come out and buy our house. And it was you.
Yeah, and it was us.
All right. Here's another view. So I know, like, my experience flipping houses, I had you walk enough, you start walking them, and, houses have personalities. You start to recognize some patterns. At least you make some assumptions. They can be good or bad. But what were you thinking here when you're walking this property? At least, I don't know. I walk the outside first, and I'm typically go inside. What were you thinking when you were starting to walk this property?
This was business as usual for me. Having a beat up house is nothing out of the ordinary. One of the reasons why I'm brave at doing stuff like that is because I have an internal team. And by that, I mean, I have my own guys. So we can do a lot. They're very skilled, very knowledgeable. I mean, we can handle from electrical to plumbing to concrete to roofing to with my own internal crew. So when I saw this house, I mean, it was business as usual. The guy walked in. I mean, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. I actually got an inspection because I didn't go out there. So I sent, which is not something typical I do either, but I knew I was like, I need some reassurance. So I sent an inspector out there. The inspector saw some stuff, but he started pitching me with like, I can fix this house for you and it'll be about $100,000. And, so I was like, nah, bro, I'm out. So, but nonetheless, I knew what I was looking at. And again, it was nothing out of the ordinary. So we kept moving ahead. So, yeah, at this point, nothing when it was like that. Nothing
Business
scary,
as usual.
just work.
All right. So after you finished walking the property, what was your initial exit strategy? Like, were you looking to, this is way out of your normal market. Were you thinking you're going to buy it, wholesale it, or are you going to do traditional fix and flip, rental? What were you looking to do?
It was going to be a flip from the beginning, pretty much. I knew that. Here's how I justified it, because it's important that we do that. So whenever we are analyzing properties, there's many ways that you can evaluate a property. The most common is, with a market analysis, comps and stuff like that. Now, remember what I said earlier, there was no comps here. So because there are no comps, I had to use a different approach. So the way I was evaluating my property was through a cost approach. So I decided, okay, so it's beat up. And by the way, I bought it for $155. And the reason I wanted to be and buy it is because I really liked that market and I wanted to understand it better. And there's no better way of really getting to know an area than putting some skin in the game, which is not a beginner strategy that I recommend. By the way, you can get burned quickly. Because here's another big lesson learned. That particular area, it's very close to another area. It's called Clay, Texas, and it's a very bad area. We were about 2 streets away from that, or 2 blocks or whatever, or in that case, 2 acres away from it. Now, why is that important? Because there's a lot of stigma when you're out in those smaller areas. And so some people will not show your property just because of the fact that when they grew up, they thought that area was a small area, a bad area. And so the small markets are very cliquish out there. So I didn't know that at the time. And as I was working on this house, I realized that I was in a quote, quote, bad area. And that's actually where things got interesting, because the flip was still business as usual. I mean, the repairs, we kind of knew. And we got a bunch of surprises within the repairs and all that. But the main thing that happened and why we took the decisions we took was because we knew we were fighting with no comps. We knew we were fighting in an area that was unknown to us. And now that we knew it a little bit better, we knew that it had the stigma that it was a bad area. So
at least you know it. You probably wish you knew that up front. So you're going in to flip this property. The project itself is business as usual, but now you realize, hey, this is a much different area than what you anticipated. Did that change your strategy at all?
Yes. And that's why we took some of the decisions that we took. We decided we were going to sacrifice some of our profit in order to secure higher chances of selling this property at the end. And so we're always talking about, one of the biggest things we get stuck with is over improving properties, right? It's like what is the little cartoon where with the bears and all that, a small bear, a big bear, and a middle bear. It has to be just right. You can't own it.
Goldilocks?
Goldilocks. Yeah, I should know this, right? So it's like I like to call on my daughter on this. So it's like it has to be just right. You can't under improve and you can't over improve, or you don't make money. It has to be just right. So this time around, we knew we had to over improve. Why? Well, because if we didn't, could we really draw people out in the middle of the country in an area that has a very bad stigma and move this property? So we decided, okay, we're gonna over improve from the beginning, because another mistake I see people make very often, they do a half-ass flip. We can curse here, right?
Go for it. You just did.
We do a half-ass flip. It doesn't move. 2 months later, and they decide, oh, you know what? I'm gonna put some quartz on it, and now I'm gonna put this and that, and see if it sells afterwards. But what ends up happening, it gets deeper on the hole. So when you're making decisions, you got to make decisive decisions early on and stick with them and understand what the strategy is going to be. So
yeah, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here. So typically you want to rehab to the comps. Now, when you're talking about over rehabbing, it's you don't need to do anything above and beyond that because you're not living in it. You rehab to the comps. That's what gets homes sold on budget, and which hopefully you're making money if you do that correctly. You don't have comps.
No.
And you also have another problem where your value is now assumed to be lower than what your original estimate was because of location. And you're having to overcompensate that by just adding more value in. More
value, yes. The only two comps that we had was mobile home in the same size lot as ours. And that one has sold for $205 or $210. So we figured, okay, well, knowing what we know about mobile homes, if that mobile home is selling for that, we should be able to sell for more. The theory.
What was your initial rehab estimate?
My original rehab was $35,000.
And that would take you roughly how long? To rehab, yeah.
Yeah. Once we get started, I mean, that's 4 or 5 weeks, 5 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall what your original value, like your ARV after repair value estimate, was based on that budget?
So we're also very, very conservative, but at $35,000, it was supposed to be anywhere between $275 to $300 because we didn't know.
Okay, so you bought it at $155, you got about $35 into it, but you're expecting to sell it for around $270? Is that what you said?
Yeah, $275 to $300.
Okay.
Or $270 to $300, somewhere around there. We didn't know exactly.
How did you finance this one?
Private lenders, actually.
All right.
I have like a lot of good private lenders. Actually, there's one right here. Jim, hey, what's going on?
He's like hiding in the
this
back.
Was not on one of your deals, so don't worry. So let me put it this way. That there's different kind of money, and all money is good money. And by that, I mean that there's certain lenders that will do certain things, and they'll understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, but some feel more comfortable with certain deals than others. You know, I know for a fact he would have never gone for that, so I would have never even gone there. So this other one, he goes there, but he's going to charge you for it a little bit more.
Yeah,
and that's what I mean. That it's some people get stuck on certain, like, oh, I have to make some money with this particular lender, but sometimes you have to go get different kind of money just because the deal could still be good.
Yeah. So once you close on a property, that's where the real fun begins.
Yeah.
And from my experience, this picture showing a room stripped down to the studs, this must have been a very fun project for you.
Yeah.
So what happened to cause this mess?
So the previous picture that you see over there, if you go back about the kitchen there, so this is the picture that I got from the inspector. So you look at a kitchen, and he's like, oh, that looks good, or good enough. The problem is on the left corner, that's actually where the wall is at, or was. So that entire area was the kitchen. And this is a 4-bedroom home. And the kitchen is, the size, it's 7 by 15. And that is the kitchen right there. So as soon as I walk in, I'm like, oh, heck no, bro. This is not going to work out. Not in this area, knowing what I know. Oh my gosh, here we are. And again, going back, decisive decisions from the beginning, I said, okay, well, that can't be the kitchen. So start tearing up some walls. My favorite thing to do.
At least from like HGTV shows, that's definitely the most fun part. For you, since you're knowing doing that is starting to eat into your pocketbook. It's probably not as exciting. So what, how did that decision and realizing what you're going to have to do now, how did that change your project, your plan?
Well, we, at this point, that was not the only other problem. The other problem was, another big problem was that the roof was supposed to be in quote, okay condition. And the inspector went in there and he says, I can't figure out why it's doing what it's doing. I think it has a very interesting structure in the roof. So it looked like...
The inspector said interesting.
Yeah. So it looked like a Chinese building like this with 2 points up on the top. So you see, that was actually them putting up studs to hold the roof, and they attached those pieces of wood to the stud. So what ended up happening, it started sinking, and the studs were poking out. So as soon as we saw that, I was like, well, I can't make it a Chinese-looking house, so I gotta tear everything up. So we tore up the roof too and fixed the problem.
You have the kitchen. Now you have the roof. Well, before the kitchen was the location.
Yep.
Now you have the kitchen, then the roof. And what's going on here? So if you can't tell, in this video, we have some concrete that appears to be inside the house. You typically don't see holes in your slab inside the house, especially holes that are exposing plumbing lines. So what's going on here?
Turns out that the drain emptied on the underneath the slab. So there was a big hole, and it just kind of seeped to the floor and went outside.
It was a makeshift septic tank?
Yeah, I don't know. What's going on here? So now we got to work on the plumbing too.
All right. And these are all very cheap things to do. You're talking about...
Yeah. Actually, for me, it is. Again, you have to remember, we have control over this. So any change that I make is basically a cost of this.
Well, so let's be fair. Cheaper.
Yeah.
There's still a cost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, both in time and money.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely, controlling your own crews, you have a little bit more control over the elements than if you're hiring an outside GC.
Oh, he would have killed me. He would have destroyed me, an outside GC. This was not the property for it, 100%.
All right, so you were originally anticipating $35,000.
Yeah.
What was the final cost?
It ended up being about 60 when you said all said and done.
60,000.
Yes, sir.
How long did it take? Like you were planning 4 weeks, right? 4 or 5?
Yeah, 5 weeks. No, but here's the problem also, because we were doing several flips at the time as well. And so we bought it in November, and it was not up in rotation. We figured, we got time, but November, December, January, the house is not going to sell anyway. So we didn't start on that property until actually January, February or so, because we kept pushing it to the back. So anyway, so we didn't start until probably already February or so. And we started construction. It took us about 2.5 months or so. Yeah. So
about double the time,
mm-hmm.
And you started later. And I'm sure your lender was happy to let you have it for free interest until you started it, right?
Yeah, he literally said, "Jaime, we've done so many deals together. I trust you."
They trust you.
Okay.
He was collecting those checks.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All right.
It's all good.
Now, it turned out all right, though. Look at that.
Yeah.
Nice. So talk about, you did a lot of stuff to the roof.
Show them the front again, because I think...
Yeah, so we're going to click back here. If you look at the front, it's flat.
It's a rectangle. It's a long rectangle. And again, I'm in a bad area, and I got to drag people out there. So what do we say? Well, we jacked up the roof already, so we have to fix it. So I told the guys, I was like, you know what? We're going to make it look amazing now. And we did. So we started giving it a design, breaking it up more, making it look really attractive from outside. And that way we can start drawing in people with nice pictures. So
yeah, you did a good job there. Like the carpet feel is just night and day difference. And so this picture, shows your fully remodeled kitchen.
Yeah. That's one. Yeah. So on the left-hand side, that's where the kitchen used to be. Do you see that little hole on the left?
Mm-hmm. That was it?
Yeah, the kitchen went in there. So we're extending all the way from the left-hand side all the way to the right. So something that we really wanted to do, we knew it was going to be a country house. We knew we needed to attract that kind of buyer, and we needed him to not really care about what was going on in that area and just wow himself with the house and say, you know what, I'm going to stay here. So we put a washroom on the left-hand side where the kitchen was, and that was probably 6 by 6. Then we put a pantry that was probably another 7 by 6. And then the kitchen started and expanded all the way to the outside. That door, we moved it from the left to the right.
Looks good. Good job there. And look at the back. So if you can tell from that old picture, I'm gonna flip back.
That's the back. Yeah.
Love the landscaping job they had going on here. But I think your design's better.
Yeah, we cleaned it up. We tore down that little shed they had out there. We put siding on the sides just because we gave it a modern look. We really wanted to make it look good.
So when you went into this deal, did you have a backup exit strategy, or was it sink or swim flip?
We can always try to rent it, but that was not the ideal strategy. I mean, there's other strategy we could use, owner financing and try to sell notes or whatever, but to be honest, that's not what I like to do. I mean, I like to be done with it. And yeah, no, we had to be done with it. So if we had to, then I guess we could have tried to hold it, but I didn't really want to do that. Not only that, because I mean, the industry was turning, and it was turning quickly, or it is turning quickly. And now that when you're flipping, you're kind of flipping upside down. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to account for it in the numbers.
So what was the actual sales price?
It ended up being at $281.
$281. So think about that. Like your original valuation, $275, $300, based on a $35,000 remodel. Put in $60 to hit the original sales point price.
Yeah.
So you're making decisions on the job, having to overcompensate for the bad area. That paid off in this case, because had you gone in with a $35,000 remodel, even just the extras that you discovered, what do you think the sales price would have been?
If without the extras?
Yes.
Boy, I don't even want to know.
Lower than 275 though, right?
I would have gotten stuck, I think. To be honest, I had one offer, and that's 3 weeks after being in the market, which is real. And mind you, that area is 90 days on market. So, and that's another reason, by the way, I'm also a licensed realtor, as you know. I'm under your team, EXP. And that helps me out too, because not only am I my own GC, I find my own deals, and I'm also my own realtor. So why is that important? Because you're still in the game to make money, so you actually have to maximize as much as you can. So whenever I got this call from this realtor, it was 2 weeks in. It's just like, hey, we're interested in the property. Oh, by the way, and also wasted about a month and a half with the neighbor that was supposedly going to be buy it. I know better than that. But since I was worried, I was like, yeah, you can buy it. Okay, we'll
neighbors
get you
don't have money.
So you already know how that goes. And I wasted a lot of time. That didn't pan out. That fell through. And then I put it on the market. And then this deal came 3 weeks in, or 2 weeks in. And she comes in and she offers me $250. And obviously that was a big negative. And I said, well, it's like $250. I was like, we can't do that. I listed for $279. So that was just the middle price. I knew that it could be higher. It was $279, and I wanted to work it from there. And it ended up selling at $281.
All right.
I said no, firmly. She called. It's like, hey, we want to offer you $250. It's like, no, ma'am, we can't do that. It's like, oh, well, do you have any offers? I was like, it doesn't matter whether I have offers or not. I'm like, $250 is not going to work. And And she's like, but, you want to get stuck with the property? I was like, I don't think I will. I said, it's a very nice property. I think we have a lot of things to offer, and go check it out. And then things went silent. And that's when you start second guessing yourself and like, shoot, I should have taken it, But you have to remember what kind of market you're in, though. I mean, people now, they don't just buy a house. They come and they look at your house. They look at another neighbor's house. They look at another house. And then they come back and they're like, let's look at that one again. And then that's when decisions started getting serious. So I knew that as well. So, yeah.
All things being equal, the nicer house wins. It's just
exactly.
And just guessing here, there was no other existing home in that market that looked like that.
No, because all the other houses in that area with this quality will go for 450 in the nice areas. Yeah. And so just the house down the street, and when I say down the street, I mean several miles down there, went for 450, and it was uglier than mine. So, but it's in the nice area, So, yeah.
What were you originally intending on making on this house, like net?
So I'm always trying to aim around 70. That's the target, and then it goes down from there. So
what'd you actually make?
Probably about 42, 43 net.
Which could have been a break even had you not gone the extra mile, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would have been a break even for sure, or worst case scenario, maybe even lose a little. So that's another thing. You got to leave yourself some room whenever you're doing these things. Otherwise, that was a very big play, adding all this other stuff, new roof, new everything. They had zero things to complain about. I even added concrete in the front. I never add concrete in the front. It was one of those things,
And this is also you controlling a lot of the variables with construction, the GC, and your being an agent, being able to list it.
Yeah. Being an agent and being able, that's where your agents really come in handy. They have the confidence to negotiate this properly for you and not blow the deal. And that's the hard part also when you're doing with your own deals. I mean, we've done so many deals, so I'm very comfortable negotiating for myself. I don't even think of it as money anymore. It's more like, just another deal that we're trying to win at, So you have to be careful, because if you blow the deal right now, I mean, you cannot get another chance, or a very distant chance, because what if it was going to be 250, but 250 4 months down the line?
Yeah.
Now it gets ugly.
All right. So I started implementing a debrief, and I learned this from some of my my military buddies that every time they go out and do a mission or a training ops, they come back and they debrief everything. And I started doing that with my flips. Coincidentally, after I started making mistakes, I'm like, hey, why don't we debrief this up so we stop making the same mistakes over and over? What were some of the biggest mistakes that you learned from on this deal?
Oh, bro, I had all kinds of mistakes. I learned all kinds of stuff. First, number one, there's rules in place for a reason. There's a lot of seasoned investors that came before you, and they set up these rules, and all you got to do is just follow the rules. And one of the best rules you can follow is don't buy more than 70% minus repairs. 70% minus repairs. 70% minus repairs will keep you very much safe when you're flipping. Don't be hopeful, be negative. This is when you're buying, that's when you have to be the negative Nancy. You cannot be the hopeful Nancy. Oh, by the way, the appraisal came back. And I don't know why, again, realtors, but she sent me the appraisal in an email. It appraised at 305. 305. Yeah, I was pissed.
Your original assessment was right.
Yep, and it's funny because he had the same problems as I did, and he went out there and he wrote in his notes, not enough sufficient comps, use cost approach, and we came up with 305. So they were happy once they got it back because they tried to negotiate with me, and that's how I was able to negotiate up again, because now they wanted seller concessions and yada yada, and I was saying no. I said no. And we want to repair this and that. I said no. I said, look, You're already getting a property that's worth 305. You're coming in, not having to put maybe even a lot of money down because you're already in equity. So what else you want from me? You know?
So that's a really good lesson if y'all didn't catch that. I did that all the time. And it obviously, the bigger the gap, the better. Contract price and appraisal price. Appraisers, by and large, they want transactions to go through. They want to be able to help you out. But at the end of the day, they're using data, and they're a third party. They're independent of the lenders. They're going to do what they do. And getting an appraiser, if it's a bad appraisal, to admit that they're wrong and amend it, I'm like 10, or I'm like 0 for 10 on that. So, but in the case like you had where they come out and they appraise, it's higher in contract price, and you're flipping an older home. Inspector comes in, they do their job, they give that buyer, an 80-page document of everything that's wrong with the house. Your only hope is they got a good agent to talk them through that, but nevertheless, it can be scary for a buyer. Naturally, they're going to come back and try to do post-contract negotiations. That's where knowing that appraisal value can be very helpful in either adjusting price to higher to compensate, or just saying no, like you're getting a good deal. So knowing that, and if they don't, which very rarely is the agent going to volunteer that information, but you can push for it. 100% you can push for it. They don't have to tell you, but they know, and they know what they can do. So if their buyer has the ability, like if they have the affordability to go up in their monthly payments and have a higher loan amount and to offset some repair costs or credits or whatever, that was a big nugget. I just wanted to go on a little bit of a detour because take those when you can.
It's the season of seller contributions right now. Everybody wants them, and everybody's going to ask for them. And again, you have to be a good negotiator, a good agent, because how do you know when the deal will get blown or when you can push back? Because if you don't push back, I mean, that's $7,000 that goes out of your pocket. And if you're doing 25 flips a year at $7,000 loss, that's a whole lot of money. Whole lot of money. So you got to learn to negotiate and be comfortable pushing back whenever you need to. 100%.
So what changes did you implement to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes again?
Well, it's not like I didn't know. It's you just can't get wild, man. And go out there, and that's why I like having good partners that are going to look at your numbers and keep it real for you. And by partners, I mean my private lenders. They would never. Some of them would have never let that fly, right? But to be honest, I wanted to let it fly anyway because I really want to learn that market, and it paid off. At that point, I bought 4 properties at the same time in that city, like within a short amount of time, and that some of them were going to be rentals and some flips and all that. So it's I really want to get to know that area. So that's why I did it. It was also a research method, call it. Just a very risky one, right?
So if you're thinking about doing that, it's probably a good idea to partner with someone that has been in that market. Might be it's a cheaper way to learn from someone else's mistakes. Yeah. All right. So closing questions. I ask these folks, or I ask these questions to folks on the podcast. Same 4 questions, and then we'll open it up to a little bit of Q&A. I think we might have time. If you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Go ahead and skip college and go straight into real estate. I got about 2 useless degrees, master's degree that does nothing. I'd probably do more martial arts, and I would have jumped on this as soon as I could. Yeah, it's just education's very important, but it's a degree is not what's going to give you that knowledge, that education. You have to self-educate if you really want to be good at something. That's another thing. I eat, sleep, and breathe real estate. I study every single day, every day, since forever. So I still got a long, long, long way to go. And the more and more and more and more that you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know, and the more you stay in your little box that you're good at. And because it's a scary world out there, especially if you start getting distracted. And if you're a single family home, ain't the same thing as multifamily and commercial. And within commercial, there's warehouses and retail and office space. And it's like, it's never ending. So yeah, Jaime, skip college, stick to your stuff, study every day, stick around to single family homes. Don't take stupid risk stuff in the middle of Brenham. And
or just know your market.
Yeah.
What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
I have a lot, but one that sticks out is that 4-hour work week, just because the mindset behind it of using resources to get stuff done that you need cheaper. Another one was The Art of the Start. I really enjoyed that book because it just basically gives you a perspective on how to start a business in general. I'm not going to say Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Everybody says that. So I think those two were my main ones that developed my mindset. Yeah.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
What was that again? In the last 5 years?
What new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Discipline. That's always that's been my number one from day one. Just stay disciplined. And again, this is one deal out of so many I've done. It's not. I went rogue on this, but that's not my personality. I'm very consistent. I'm very structured. I try to do stuff the same way every day. This entrepreneurship is not about waking up when you want to and doing what you want to all day. It's you really have to be disciplined if you want to be an entrepreneur or a flipper or whatever. And you always, I'm always trying to improve my processes, always. So that's one, and I'm also very disciplined and structured. I mean, everything comes at a certain hour, so it helps out a lot.
Before we get to the last question, want to open it up to the audience. I'll need a mic handler. Jamie, is she in the room?
Okay, any questions? Oh, hi.
I'm just curious, size of the lot or land that it was on.
That was 0.89.
Okay, so around an acre.
Yeah. Just curious, why? Why?
Yeah, we got a follow-up question.
Why?
Why are you interested in that? Explain your question, please.
I've actually been interested in the Brenham area myself.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I was talking to a lot of people, but I specialize more in secondary and tertiary markets versus primary. So,
do you know where Clay is at?
Actually, I don't.
Okay, well, look it up. Don't buy there.
Stay a couple streets over.
Yeah.
More than two.
I already did the homework for you.
All right, questions.
Is there a certain CRM or lead management software that you kind of use with all the deals you do?
Yeah, I do. I use REI Sift, and that's my main CRM. So, yeah, that's my only CRM. Yeah. Come on, you guys got to ask me some difficult questions. Come on.
These are some softball
At least make me feel bad for buying this deal.
You scared them all.
So when you're doing these deals, are you trying to set them up so that you can just do one after the other after the other? Is it kind of like an assembly line? How are you doing that with your crew? How do you keep them busy? How do you keep the flow going?
That's a great question. I like that. The answer is yes. It's an assembly, and it's one after another, and we plan accordingly. So this year, I don't want to do as many deals. I just want to basically do things I can handle and move quickly with. And by that, I mean, I'm really not trying to do 3 flips or 4 flips in a month. You know, if I can do 1.5, I'm good. I do have overages of deals. In that case, then I'll wholesale them and sell them. So I also use subs now. So whenever let's just say we're working on a property. For example, I have a couple of deals going on right now at the same time. I'll use the subs in a particular deal while my main guys are working on the expensive, complicated stuff. And then I can switch them out as I see fit. Yeah.
So what's a slow year for you? You said you're slowing down.
About one a month, 1.5. Yeah.
And a busy year?
And we're trying to do 3, 4. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I think probably the most we ever had was 5. I don't know.
Probably 5, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a lot.
But that's the most you can handle with my type of operation. After that, you're entering a whole different business, and that's now you need a project manager. Now you need and that, to me, in this world, that's just an extra expense. It's see, most of us are still playing. I mean, people are still lending, but what you want is control right now. Control of the deals. If you can't control it, I don't recommend it, because it's not a beginner market right now. You know, fixing a house, that's one thing. Selling it is another. And there's a lot of things that go into play. You got to use every single tool you have available to you to make your house more marketable so that it'll move. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Your ability to sell the house for as much as possible. So, I mean, there's different things that I do also. Design is number one. You got to pay attention to what's going on around your neighborhood. Make that house, right now, I try to make my houses slightly better than everybody else and provide extras that people are not providing. And yes, it's going to cost me $5,000 more or even $10,000 more than my competition. But my train of thought on it is that if I don't do that, then it's going to sit on the market another 3 or 4 months and maybe still sell at a discount. So I take the approach of I just want to sell it quickly. Most of my houses have sold in less than a month, even right now, which is for most houses, it's taken about, now it's what, 4.5, you said, months average now?
Yeah, well, nationally it's 4.1 months. I didn't look at the last month's HAR report, but yeah, nationally.
Anyway, it's slowed down.
Or
So
4.3
it's
actually.
taken a couple of months for houses to move.
So
And
in context, 4.3. So this time last year, I think it was like 3.3. So we've increased by like 30% in inventory. That's a big jump in 1 year. Huge jump. I
And
mean,
also-
it's still 6 months has historically been known as healthy. We've been so far below that with low inventory for so long. We're used to that. So now when a home sits on the market for 2.5 weeks, you're like, what's going on?
yeah.
I mean, but right now, I mean, it's all in what's going on in the market today. And if you know that and do what he's referring to, which correct me, I mean, maybe you can chime in on this too. When we would look at what we should do, so rehab to the comps, and then anything extra that would either increase ROI or decrease time, which increases ROI. Help us sell it for more or decrease time. That one little special touch to really make it shine above and beyond everything else. That helps move properties.
Another thing that I do, I actually didn't do it in that house, and that's the only one I couldn't do it just because the prices were so outrageous. I always stage all my houses. So all my houses, I just don't understand why you wouldn't want to do that. I mean, you remember, you're still in the business of sales and marketing is all about presentation, how something looks. I'm telling you, people have gone in my houses and they look at them, they say, man, I love that painting. Like, it has nothing to do with the house. But they love that painting. It's like, I love the house. I'm like, okay. But presentation, very important. Your clients cannot visualize very well.
On that, do you do full staging, light
Full.
staging? Interesting.
Full.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's really because in a low inventory market, you didn't need that.
Yeah.
It's changed, and you're right. It's hard to visualize, especially in houses that may have a weird layout. Staging can go a long way.
Yeah, and when we were doing a lot of houses, I mean, it's you or more than I am now. It was easier because you pop them in the market and you're not doing much, and 2 days later you have a bunch of offers to negotiate from. Of course, you don't take a genius during that time to do what we do, but now it's different, you know. And who knows what's going to happen with, not to get political or anything, because I don't know anything about politics, but I don't know, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, and you're operating at a market that's it's shaky right now. We don't know what's going to happen. So I know I can move a house, but I don't know if I can move forward, you know.
How do you source deals, and do you have any advice for new investors out here?
Yeah. So that's a tricky question, because I will say you should start by sourcing deals depending on your ability. By that I mean, do you have time or do you have money? If you have money and you want deals, then just go in some pay-per lead service, pay $300 a lead, get you 40 leads, and you'll find a deal if you have some basic sales skills, and you will find a deal. But it's going to cost you, right? It's going to cost you, I don't know, $7,000 or $8,000, maybe even 10, depending on your skill set, a deal. But that could be good if you don't have any extra staff and you're the only person taking in inbound leads. Now, if you have time but you don't have money, you can just do the good old driving for dollars. Go into a neighborhood, look at beat up houses, get you a list of 500 at a minimum per week, and skip trace them with any service provider, really, and start calling them. Another thing that I used to do, I don't do it anymore, but I used to leave Post-it notes in there. Say, hey, dropping by, I'm buying a house. It looked like handwritten. Just leave it there. And every house that I was putting in, it takes more time, but people call that number a lot more. So you have to find that, because all the lead sources work. I mean, you could pull a list. That's another one. That's the most go-to common way. But it's that's the list that everybody else is pulling. Probate, pre-foreclosure, evictions, divorce list, tax delinquent. You could go that route too. And it's not much more complicated than that, to be honest. Yeah.
Every
Does that
list
help?
works.
Yeah.
The one that works the best is the one you work.
Yeah, and right now you have to be careful with cold calling and text messaging, because they're really cracking down. So me personally, for the future, I'm trying to get everything inbound. So I'm really working on my website. I'm really working on PPC, PPL. PPC is pay per click. PPL is pay per lead. There is a difference. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
So what are the main points when buying a flip home? Like main things we have to check?
There's not a main thing you have to check. You just have to be really good at assessing your repairs cost. And by that I mean, how much is it going to cost me to repair this or that, and how long? So when you're flipping, you have to understand that you're in the business of project management. So can you guys hear me? Okay, because something changed in my headphones. When you hear you're in the business of project management. So whenever you're trying to find a deal, wholesaling, or find a house, you're in the business of sales and marketing. Whenever you're actually working on the flip, you're in the project management business. Whenever you're selling the property, now you're back to sales. And they're not one of the same. Point being, flip itself, you have to be a project manager. So what do you have to take into account? Cost, time, and resources. It's like, how much time is it going to cost me? How much is it going to cost? And who can do it for me? So when you go in there and you look at a house, it's like, how beat up is it? You got to be able to assess how much it's going to cost you to fix the house. Now, I have personal formulas that work for my company, because it's almost impossible to go through every little detail. One of the ways you could do it, if you're not sure, you get an inspector. You get an inspector, he gives you a list, and then you can get some GCs and tell them, how much is it going to cost me to repair all of this, and go from there. Another way, like we do, is we use a formula. We say, for example, 1,500 square feet and below is going to cost you X for a simple fix, for a medium fix, or a heavy fix. For 1,500 to 3,000 square feet, it's going to cost this, this, this. So we have a little matrix that I have set up that we go by. Now, I mean, when I walk in the house, I know exactly how much it's going to cost me now. I mean, just repetition, right? Repetition. But when you're not sure, go by that little formula or ask somebody. If you ask me, I'll send it to you, what we do. So does that help? Did I answer a question or? Okay.
Last question. How can people contact you?
That's a good question. I'm terrible at that social media stuff, man. But it's they can find me on Facebook, and that's Jaime Lazcano, Jaime E. Lazcano. Or you can follow me on Instagram, and that's Jaime _Lazcano _official. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very
for your
much.
time, guys. Thank you for having me,
Okay.
Chris.